Today is the second day for Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta's state visit to South Africa. This visit aims to deepen the bilateral trade between the two countries. Kenyatta yesterday called on Africa to do away with borders if it wants to be a manufacturing giant. For more on the relationship between the two nations, I'm joined now by the President of the Organization of African Political Parties Forum, Dr. Charles Sinkala. Dr. Sinkala, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. What have you made of some of the statements and remarks that have been made with South Africa and Kenya as we listened in to what Uhuru Kenyatta had to say?
Yes, good morning, and thank you very much for having me, and good morning to your viewers. It's a story for Africa that has been spoken on many platforms, and I think now it is being spoken by one whom I know as a staunch Pan-Africanist, President Uhuru Kenyatta, having had his father, the founding father of Kenya, Jomo Kenyatta, and he continues the spirit of Africa to fight for trade and investment. And I think his message was very clear to the South Africans, to the South African government, and as well as to the rest of the continent. His visit to South Africa signifies the agenda for Africa and the story for Africa, that Africa must trade within herself, you know, instead of exporting the raw materials and just receive the finished product over the more than the price it was supposed to cost if it was supposed to be imported or exported within the African region.
The importance of this relationship, because we know that Kenya is one of South Africa's largest trading partners. How significant is it that these talks do happen and these discussions head to a point like this? I mean, if Africa wants to be a manufacturing giant, it has to do away with borders, is something that really stood out as we heard President Uhuru Kenyatta speak.
Yes, indeed, it is certainly important that, you know, the borders create a big impediment in terms of trade within the continent. I mentioned earlier on different platforms that, you know, the cost of doing business within Africa is very exorbitant. So that's why people prefer to do business with the outside Africa, where they just fly things or they just trade with either Europe or United States of America. The bureaucratic system within the African continent, ranging from the border controls to the immigration controls and the government and access to register either companies or to have the cost of doing business within Africa reduced, has been a major challenge. And I think President Uhuru Kenyatta's message on to do away with the borders, it was something which was sending a very strong signal in terms of the immigration policies. We can see that we have a lot of Africans who are doing, I won't call it illegal trade in South Africa, but undocumented trade in South Africa due to the bureaucratic system which they find. They can register a company, but they cannot be legally be given credentials. Of course, we have seen now that the uprising of the Zimbabweans, whom the Home Affairs has refused to renew their visas, has also exacerbated the situation of trade. And this is actually the losing part of the South Africans and the South African government in terms of the income, because these people now, they trade illegally without declaring their income within the continent. And I think once we do away with the bureaucratic system, be it on the borders, the immigration controls, and, you know, recognizing ourselves as Africans, you know, like what happens in Europe. Europe has made itself to be where she is now because of the trade between the European countries, Germany, France, and many other European countries, where they've got only one red passport, which is the red passport. You know, you can fly from one place to the other place without spending visa requirements and all those type of things. I just flew on Saturday to come into Abuja for the conference here to pay $116 for the visa just to be in Nigeria. I mean, I'm supposed to be recognized as having a South African passport, that I may be given easy preference within the African continent. But I think the state visit of President Uhuru Kenyatta shall open up the doors, not only the relationships of bilateral relationships of assisting South Africa during the apartheid period, but trade is the most important thing that as Africans we must look at. The service delivery that we're having problems here in South Africa and elsewhere in Africa is something to do with trade. If we do not trade, we won't have money. For yourself as well, if you do not come for work, you won't have money to pay for your accommodation, food and other necessities. So hence the call for us as Africans to trade at 90%, especially to trade within ourselves.
And how will the impact of these agreements and these talks be weighed as we look at the continent and the many, many challenges it faces, especially now during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yes, these agreements, they're very important, but we need practitioners, to practice what has been laid down by the leaders. Both leaders, as explained, the barriers they've talked about, the imbalances between the trade between South Africa and Kenya, which is about $500 million against $20 million from Kenya. South Africa is more of advancing into Kenya territories. ShopRite, Pick and Pay, Woolworths, and many other companies, about 40 companies has moved into Kenya, which has been legalized and they are trading. And if we look at the other way around in South Africa, we don't see any Kenyan companies, although there's informal trade either in Johannesburg or other places in townships, but there's need to balance that trade, that we are opening up doors to the outside world in terms of investment. We shall ease up the immigration controls and others. And I think this is the precedence that has to be set, that us individual tradesmen, businessmen, must not now advance into the government, that we've heard about these pronouncements and announcements by the leaders that we need to balance the trade. And I think that will be a step forward. But merely listening to speeches that we've listened time and after again without the people coming forward to trade, South Africans coming, what can I learn from Kenya? What can I go trade in Kenya? How can I reach myself there? Same with the Kenyan government and the people of Kenya. How can they come legally here? If they're having problems, how can they show that immigration officer at the border or any point of entry in the country that, did you hear about the speech from Uhuru Kenyatta? Did you hear about the speech from President Cyril Ramaphosa, who said the borders has to be eased so that we can trade freely? It is from that participation of the general public that we shall see these speeches and the conferences that has been mentioned time after again, that we shall see the advancement of Africa moving forward.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. President of the Organization of African Political Parties Forum, Dr. Charles Sinkala, speaking about the impact and perhaps the relevance of Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta's visit here in South Africa and measuring the impact of those agreements that have been signed.